America's Mayor Live. And where are we live from? We are live from Manchester, New Hampshire. Well, actually, to be perfectly correct, we're in Hooksett.
Accurate. We're in Hooksett.
We're like a mile over the border from Manchester. Not even that, right?
Not even
We
that.
could almost walk to Manchester, but we would die of frostbite. Tonight, as you know, is the night of the New Hampshire Primary Eve, and I have with me an expert on New Hampshire, a person who is totally objective about New Hampshire. And
radio show, right? It's based out of New York, even though we have a worldwide audience. All I say is New Hampshire this, New Hampshire that.
was the number one CEO of rural hospitals for 7 straight years, which was to the benefit of the hospital she ran, Cottage Hospital here in New Hampshire. So she knows the state north, middle, south, west. And I spent a good deal of time here as a surrogate in 3 primaries and as a candidate in 1. And really feel pretty comfortable with the politics in New Hampshire, but she really knows it. And of course, tomorrow we have a primary that could be definitive. It might not be. One of 3 things, I guess, is going to happen tomorrow. Trump is going to win a big win. Double digits, up there in double digits. Anything in double digits or more threatens to end it, right? Because right now, looking at South Carolina, I just looked at their last poll, the last one on Real Clear Politics. Trump is leading in South Carolina by 40 points.
Now, remember, the media darling right now is Nikki Haley, and the Democrats are really pushing her. 40% of our registered voters here in New Hampshire vote independent. So they can vote in the primary and the general election. And when they go in to vote, they pick whether they want a Republican ballot or a Democrat ballot. So there's always some independents who are right leaning and some that are left leaning, and some are truly independent, that they may do one election one way and another one, depending on the candidate. But there's been a big push for the left-leaning independents to go for Nikki Haley. And Tucker Carlson tonight talked about Nikki Haley isn't a true conservative. She's more what he identified as a neoliberal candidate, very much a globalist, very much for wars, very much for that open border that's killing our young people with the fentanyl poisoning and the sex trafficking. And maybe later on, I sent it to Ted. He can upload that little clip by Tucker Carlson.
Well, I think the best indication of that is the most powerful part of the endorsements that have taken place. Endorsements at times mean nothing. At times, they're enormously important. It's hard to say. I mean, most endorsements just fly by, and if they create a point, it's a lot. Every once in a while, you get a critical endorsement. I would say the thing that's critical about the endorsements here is the vehemence with which they oppose Nikki Haley. So if you look at this, I mean, it began with Rand Paul inserting himself, not endorsing anyone, endorsing everyone except do not vote for Nikki Haley. She's not really a Republican. That's an unusual endorsement or warning.
Do you hear the tough words by Rand Paul on a pedestal? He really is a person who's America first before that term was coined. And he says, never Nikki, never Nikki.
So now you get the endorsement of the man that she appointed to the Senate, Tim Scott.
Tim Scott doesn't even endorse her.
Who watched her as a governor for many years. And he endorsed Trump, but he made it clear that he would not be comfortable with her as the candidate of the Republican Party. Yeah. Governor DeSantis, of course, was in a very difficult and contentious race with Donald Trump that ended yesterday rather quickly and abruptly. And I wasn't surprised that he. I wasn't surprised that he did. I thought he might do that. I thought it was very courageous that he did it. and very selfless. I was surprised that he went out of his way to attack Nikki Haley, however. Made the points that Rand Paul made. She's a globalist.
Yeah.
She is very much part of the corporate structure that has been very, very antagonistic to the, let's call it the pop Republican movement. Uh, so I think those endorsements probably will have a lot to do with what happens tomorrow.
And I know you're a close personal friend of President Trump, so you know him on a different level. But for many people, they've noticed a change in him, and it started really after Vivek Ramaswamy came out of the race. And he was like, it's time that we all come together. Of course, in any race, and I try to dig at your opponent, but he's really trying to gather everybody together. So it's the new and improved 2.0 President Trump. I want to go back to Friday night real quick and just do a recap. We were at a typical house party, political house party here in New Hampshire,
In
and it
Bedford.
was in Bedford. And there was over 20 people, very eclectic age groups, everything from first-time voters up to a woman was there, 97 years old or 98. She was born when Coolidge was president, but we didn't know who they were voting for, who they supported. We wanted to ascertain what's bothering about our country right now and what did they want in a leader? Well, almost everybody, it was the southern border. And it's not that we all come from immigrants. That's not the issue. The issue is there's terrorists who come across that southern border. There's 100,000 fentanyl poisonings every year. China supplies the ingredients, the cartels push it across the border. Over 80,000 children are missing, presumed to be in the sex trafficking ring. So we have some real issues at that southern border. People fear another 9/11. That was their number one, but here was the kicker. When asked who would they vote for, number 1 in that room was Donald Trump. Number 2, DeSantis, and at that time, he was still in the race, and the polls don't show.
The polls out of a 6%,
Yeah, they had
and
it
I would say
low.
he had 40% of the room.
So we asked questions around this. Really, we don't see that he's such a strong candidate in the state. Well, they figured he's an America First candidate, and when you have the real thing, Donald Trump, why go for DeSantis? But they would DeSantis for VP. Or if, say, Trump wasn't in the race, they would definitely have gone for DeSantis. And then their candidate next. So number 1, Donald Trump. Number 2,
Yeah.
DeSantis. Number 3 was Ramaswamy. And he had already gotten out of the race, but they still said that would have been their third choice. No Nikki to be seen. They did not like Nikki. They don't believe she's a real conservative. And so it was really kind of enlightening.
Well, I mean, the country, from the point of view of Republican or Republican leaning voters, is in a crisis.
Mm.
And it's in a crisis of being a country that's being run increasingly on Marxist principles that have to be rooted out before they take hold, ripped out of the body politic. And it needs a very, very tough, determined leader who has the intellectual capacity to actually understand what's happened to us
Mm.
and how this has been going on for quite some time and how it's gone over the top. So let's just sum up the polls. I think probably the last one is in. The last poll published was the Trafalgar Group, and that has Trump ahead by 22%. 58% for Trump, which is about the highest. He's not the highest, actually, that he's gotten, to 36% for Haley. The rest for DeSantis, Christie, and Ramaswamy. Remember, despite the fact that they are out of the race, their names are still on the ballot. So people will vote for them who can't really make the decision, even though they've said vote for Trump. Some of these people were so loyal to them, they'll vote for them.
True.
Then in the
percentage,
Washington Post Monmouth poll, Trump is up by 18. That's 52-34. Insider Advantage is a poll that I don't know, and it does have a strange number, 62% for Trump and 35% for Haley. That seems like I'd be comfortable calling that an outlier. The WHDH TV Emerson poll, which is a local poll,
The local one.
is almost the same, 53-37, 16%. Maybe one of the most definitive, the Boston Globe Suffolk poll, they had one yesterday where Trump was ahead by 19 points with 55%. The one today, he's still ahead by 19 points, but he's grown to 57%, and Haley has gone to 38%. What that means is that DeSantis' vote got equally distributed between the two of them. I would have thought that Trump would get a little bit of an advantage on that vote.
I think
If I was ahead by 19%, I wouldn't complain. I never complained when I was ahead by 19%. Only happened once.
You were front
Well, I won my re-election by 19%.
for
It's a
president.
nice way to win.
I want to say two things. One, this sign behind us, there is a group of ladies from Palm
Yeah, they
Beach
gave it to us.
that follow President Trump to every rally. We were at the rally Saturday night, and President Trump pointed them out. They've been to 104 rallies. Well, they came and visited us earlier today before they went on to the Laconia rally where President Trump is at. And they have all this get up that says Trump 2024, and they are dedicated, love President Trump. And they gave us that sign behind us. But I also want to remind people there's actually a Democrat primary going on in New Hampshire that you would never know about it. So we have a state law that we will be the first in the nation primary by 7 days. So if anybody else brings up their primaries earlier, we have to bring up ours. So I foresee sometime we're going to be voting the year before. But the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, and Joe Biden said F you to New Hampshire in our tradition because he does not do well in New Hampshire, Biden. Even though he won a general election here, he does not do well in Democrat primaries, and people here believe he's a plagiarist, he's a liar, and he's corrupt. So basically they snubbed us, and they're, I don't even know what's next. South Carolina isn't next, whether they're going to the next one or waiting for South Carolina.
I think Nevada is next, but I think Nevada's a caucus.
Caucus. Okay, so they're waiting for the primary
The next actual vote is South Carolina.
So some people are encouraging them to write in Joe Biden's name. I hope nobody does that. If you don't have it in your heart to vote for another Democrat, or you don't see a Republican, just stay home. But if you have to write something in, say you just can't see yourself voting Republican, go and write in close the border. That's what you should be writing. Or write in Kennedy, or write in Rudy Giuliani.
That would be nice. I mean, at least.
Or Ted.
So who knows? Polls have been right. Polls have been wrong.
I think that's pretty accurate.
They rarely overestimate a Republican vote. I never had my vote overestimated. I always had my vote underestimated as a Republican, and I think there are reasons for that, given the way in which they do the projection of voters. And but in any event, it could happen. So one of three things can happen, right? He could have one of those wins, like 60%, 57%, and then it would be effectively over. He could have a win of about 10, 12%, probably wouldn't get it over, but would have it moving toward being over. But if she were to win, or it would be very close, within 2 or 3%, then we would have a real primary.
Yeah.
And South Carolina would be extraordinarily important because that is her home state. She was the governor there. He is much more popular there than she is. And in order to win this state, she's made herself more unpopular in her home state.
She's made herself more unpopular to conservative.
Well,
Yeah.
This is a split state. There's a state that has conservatives, it has liberals, it has moderates.
Yeah.
South Carolina is one of the states in the country, probably one of the most loyal Republican states. Every public official in South Carolina is endorsing him. To go to the middle or left, as she's done, to try to win this is a catastrophe in South Carolina.
But
It's why he's ahead by
South-
60%
yeah.
in South Carolina. So she's gonna, if she were to win this or get real close, she's gonna have to do one of the biggest turnarounds in American politics real quick.
Yeah.
To have a shot in South Carolina. So which is very, very interesting. Let's see just how disingenuous she is.
So this morning we were at the very famous Red Arrow Diner here on Lowell Street in Manchester, and the energy in the air was palpable. There's like 4 other Red Arrows now that they own, but the one in Manchester is the iconic one. And of course, they were all very excited to see Rudy, and he had a number of interviews, and I had a number of interviews, and Rudy was even pouring coffee. But there was a lot of people there who came specifically to see Rudy, and they drove a long way. And one gentleman said, "I'm from Framingham, Massachusetts. I drove over an hour here, not to ask anything of Rudy. Sometimes people want him to sign something or get a picture. All he wanted to do was tell this man, hang in there. We love you. We see what they're doing. They're trying to tear you
I
down."
like the idea they want to put me in jail for the rest of my life.
Yeah, because you had information against the bride by
Comfortable with that.
Crime family. So I just thought that was sweet. And that's what you encounter here, really good, honest people. But I was on the David Webb show this morning, and I wanted to make a point to his audience that Democrats love to say, we're fighting for our democracy, 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 democracy. I actually take offense to that. We are not a democracy. The word sounds great. It seems like we would all want to be a democracy, but I want to explain a difference. We are a constitutional republic, and we've done that on purpose. It's most similar. Its origins are Roman, where democracy origins are from Greece. And here's the difference. With the democracy model, the majority rules and they can override laws. With the constitutional republic, it's all about the individual citizen, and people are elected by the people to represent them. And here's my example I always give. If I bought a bicycle, in a democratic society, in a democracy, the majority could say, every pink bike or every bike I want, they could take my bike because majority rules, and minorities and people with different opinions are persecuted. In a constitutional republic, I can keep my bike. I bought it, it is mine. So it's about individual rights. So I really take offense when they talk about America being a democracy.
Well,
that's because that's how they're acting, right? Majority rules. They're like a dictatorship now. They try to jail their opponents. They've used AI against you. They're trying to set you up on stuff. Like, it's so grotesque that I never dreamed we would see this in America. It's more like Nazism, but yet they point to the right being the Nazis when that's really them.
Well, I think it really has to do with the undermining of our education, because I don't think we've taught civics and history for about 30 years.
Yeah.
The reality is our Constitution was developed as a constitutional republic.
Yeah.
And 2 polar opposites agreed on one thing, and that is that a democracy is one of the easiest ways to a dictatorship.
Of course, when
By
majority
dictatorship of the majority.
Yep.
And that's why Madison and Hamilton insisted on the Bill of Rights.
I love those guys.
So that the separation of powers, which guarantees it, the separation of power between the state and the federal government guarantees your rights. They wanted specific guarantees of individual rights. And excuse me if I feel that those have been grossly violated by the Biden regime. The way in which they've used the criminal law in this country is really much more similar to the way it was used in the Soviet Union, the way it's used in China, the way it's used in Venezuela. Very interestingly, Biden a couple of months ago made a deal with Maduro to buy oil from him because they're starving there. But he insisted.
Remember,
he insisted. Joe did, who's working with half a brain. He insisted that
much.
A quarter. He insisted that they have an election. Maduro looked at him and said, "Yeah, we'll have an election." They're having an election. Maduro proceeded to put his opponent in jail. Sound familiar?
Sound familiar? Yeah.
Sound familiar?
How about Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, who said, we're not going to have a free and fair election here in Ukraine unless America pays for it. What is he doing with his opposition? He's jailing them. He's just a mini Putin. He really is. I hope America doesn't give them
I wouldn't
1%.
go that far.
Well,
I
that's
wouldn't
my
go that
opinion
far.
as an
I would
American.
say that we should be very careful of him because he's controlled by one of the most crooked men in Ukraine, Kolomoisky, who owns Privat Bank. Kolomoisky's expertise is money laundering. He's a world-class money launderer. Most of the money laundering out of Ukraine was done by him. And remember, Zelensky has a file on Biden that doubles mine.
I think it was just confirmed. You knew that from one of your sources that there was some audio tapes of Joe Biden in Ukraine, but
Yeah, well, no, they finally were released.
So, Bernie, had you heard that? That they had some information on those audio recordings of Biden in Ukraine?
They had. I'll tell you what I knew, but I never heard them. I knew there were recordings of Zlochevsky explaining how he bribed Biden and his son.
I see.
But I never got to hear them. They were finally obtained by the committee.
I see.
That's what they released about 3 months ago. That was the high value FBI source who explained on tape how he went about paying $5 million to Joe and $5 million to Hunter in order to protect his ownership of Burisma, which was then cashed in when Biden got the prosecutor Shokin fired.
So we'll go to a commercial before we talk about VP, Ted, or are we going to talk about VP first?
I was about to say that, but I want to plug this in. So
Let's just mention VP quickly.
We'll just do the VP then.
So, of course, already there's a lot of discussion of VP. I'm looking at a little list here, hardly exclusive.
On there.
Congresswoman Stefanik.
Now, this does not come from President Trump. This is people's theory who he might pick.
But I do know, I mean, I can tell you that he has a very high regard for her.
I like Elise too.
And the idea that
But not
Elise is new is a little ridiculous. I mean, she was one of our biggest allies throughout the impeachment battle and one of our most articulate and one of our smartest. So Elise, although maybe new to the national scene, is very well known to President Trump. J.D. Vance, that does kind of surprise me.
That's surprising.
Surprised me because he's a first-term senator and he's from a state that Trump surely is going to win, Ohio. Sarah Huckabee Sanders doesn't surprise me, largely because she's such an exceptional individual. She does seem a little bit young and a little bit inexperienced, but I think she would make up for that.
Practical, right?
Yeah, I think she'd make up for that with her extraordinary intelligence. I would almost pick her father. just to have a person with a sense of humor in Washington. I ran with him and told him several times that if he dropped out, I would, because then I'd be so bored during the debates I'd fall asleep. He was the only one who had a sense of humor, Governor Huckabee. Yeah. And then, of course, Tim Scott, who is well known anyway, but
and well liked, right? He's just a likable fella.
I can only tell you, my son, who worked in Washington for 4 years, thinks he's the greatest guy. They have Nikki Haley down as the vice presidential candidate.
Junior,
I seriously doubt it.
Never happen.
And Tucker Carlson, I mean, I think it'd be interesting if it were Tucker, but I just don't see it.
And one of my favorite,
if he does it, let's do it.
persons, because you have to look 4 years down the road, right? Trump's only going to do one term. Hopefully, it's Trump. He's going to do one term. So who's next? We want somebody very strong. Byron Donalds, and I also like the thought of maybe looking at DeSantis.
I like Ben Carson.
And you like Ben Carson, and I like Ben Carson as a human being.
And I like Ben Carson too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Ben.
He's a VP at
You worry that he's not tough enough, but I think you think he is, because that's his.
That's right. That's
I don't think you
see. Yeah.
That's his personality.
Yeah.
But I think when he has to be tough, he's tough as nails.
Yeah.
And he knows what he believes in, and he sure isn't if they asked him what the cause of the Civil War was, he wouldn't say it was a tough question.
Yeah. So we're going to take a short break. What is
Tunnel to tower. Let's do Tunnel to Towers.
Okay.
T2T.org. The Towers Foundation delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. John is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnel to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please donate now. Back with America's Mayor Live with Dr. Maria here in New Hampshire, getting ready for tomorrow's vote.
So excited.
So, Doctor, when are you going to vote tomorrow? What time? Do you have a time you figured out?
Well, yeah.
Is there a traditional time that you vote?
No, usually I'm not an early bird, so I usually go around 10 or 11, somewhere around there. And I like to go with family members. I think my daughter is going to come with me. I like that a lot. I don't have any of my grandchildren in my ward, so they have to vote somewhere else. But my girlfriend, who's a good friend of yours, Paula, we're all going to go together to cast our vote. Yeah. And here in New Hampshire, we do vote by paper. We do, depending on where you go, some of the small towns, they count by hand. And on my ward, it goes in a machine to count. So if you ever had any questions that the tabulator wasn't working correctly, you always have that paper ballot to go back to.
In Georgia, which they would never tell you, they actually destroy the paper. They convert the paper into a.
It's true.
Absolutely, it was on kill chain.
Oh, that's right.
They put it. You take the ballot, you put it in, and they convert it into a code. They keep the code.
But you can never go back to that.
But the actual checking of the box is gone.
That's not
good. Since there's a lawsuit going on about it right now, I'm not allowed to tell you the rest of it. But there was a big discovery today, if you look at the newspapers, about that. Here's an interesting fact that'll wake Ted up. So I told him yesterday.
No, we're going to talk
and
about
I didn't report it. I told him yesterday, he's from Michigan, that Trump is leading Biden in Michigan 47-39. Now that's a pretty big number for Michigan. Michigan is a Republican Democratic state by 2.3 points.
Your governor wants to change.
Now they want to change they want more paper. As soon as they saw that, they want more paper.
They just talked about it like
to tell you, I'm very scared. So in the 2020 election,
more paper ballots
who weren't elected changed rules, which was illegal. We cannot say 2020 was the safest election. We cannot. People unelected changed rules. They expanded time. So now Michigan, Illinois, there's a third state. All of a sudden,
Illinois, I don't care about.
Talk about corrupt.
They
all they wanted.
Rules this late
California.
time because they're worried about how popular
Bingo.
it is.
And they only didn't do it in 16 to the degree that they would have if they didn't know, they didn't see it coming.
They didn't.
We caught them with their pants down.
Yeah.
2020, they were not going to let Trump win. I'm from Michigan.
About the district attorney in Atlanta?
Yes.
You caught them with their pants.
Yeah. No, in Michigan. And it's something.
I just got it.
No, you gotta let me. You have to allow me to take a few shots. So that after all, she wants to put me in jail until I die.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was her hero.
Yeah. Look,
that we all questioned
the damage she's done to democracy and this country.
And she had a good time doing it.
And that's the thing. And to come to find out, she did it all not for some crazy idealistic Democrat
Can you
crazy
imagine,
reason. She did it so
the
she could
guy,
take cruises with their money.
the guy who's doing it, the lawyer she picked to do it, is an ambulance chaser. I mean, basically, he does slip and fall cases.
You can say that. He's a lawyer. He can say that.
But he's an ambulance chaser.
Yeah, my dad.
He was in the district attorney's office. He never tried a felony case, which means he had to be one of the big jackasses in the district attorney's office. I ran a U.S. attorney's office, and I can't think of anyone that only would try non-felony cases. You would have to be like a sub-moron to do that. So he tried non-felony cases. She had a staff, including a government official prosecutor who was an expert on their RICO law. I got to tell you from reading the indictment, he would get an F in my RICO class, but in any event, she goes and hires him as the expert. She doesn't need the expert. She has one. He's not an expert. He doesn't know anything about what she hired him for. She's going to pay him $1 million. She's already paid 700,000 of it. All right, that's bad enough.
Jury thing she did.
But she also, and this, all of a sudden, when I heard this, my prosecutorial brain went off. I never could understand why they had 2 grand juries. I could never understand why, when I was originally called and we were negotiating whether to, I tried to do the grand jury remotely because everybody else was doing things remotely, but they insisted that I go there. I was ill. They disputed the fact that I was ill. Well, in any event, they were miserable and mean. And and my lawyer said, this is ridiculous. This is a grand jury that can't indict. Well, by the very nature of a grand jury, it indicts. That's what it's for. This grand jury investigated and would make recommendations to a second grand jury that would then reinvestigate. Now, Bob and I weren't sufficiently swift. We usually are. We should have figured it out right then. This was a scam. This was a con job. She effectively created 2 opportunities to pay him.
Yeah.
So she had a grand jury that was unnecessary.
She cheated the tax.
It took a whole year. You charge up all kinds of hours and you get 300 grand for that. Then you do it all over again for 300 grand. And you also accomplish getting it into the election year as opposed to prosecuting it a year and a half ago. I did figure that out. I did figure they're doing this to push it into the election year. I never thought they would really be pigs and push 4 felony prosecutions into the election year. That, to me, that is just on the face of it, a violation of the Due Process Clause of the United States Constitution. If I represented a client who had to go on trial 4 times this year in a felony case, I'd go before the first, second, third, and fourth judge, and I'd say, before we even started, you violated his right to due process, because I can't possibly prepare 4 cases in 1 year. John Gotti wasn't indicted 4 times in 1 year. The Rosenbergs weren't indicted 4 times in 1 year. I don't know, go pick the worst criminal in history. You don't indict somebody 4 times in 1 year. There's got to be another reason you're doing it, to stop him from being president, which is why the whole damn thing should be thrown out as a gross violation of our Constitution.
And then the Justice Department, everything's supposed to be very separate. Well, we now have seen there's a lot of collusion between Fulton County, the New York DA office, and the White House, which isn't supposed to be. In all this corruption, this is why we, the people, get upset, because nobody is held accountable. We see conservatives being oppressed every day. As a matter of fact, the number 1 group, in my opinion, that is oppressed in the United States are conservatives. At this big house party on Friday, a lot of people were fine with being on camera. About 20 people were fine being on camera, but approximately 10 people
that
said,
was frightening to actually watch
I
that.
just want to be on
I felt
camera.
like I was watching a Nazi movie, like an old World War II movie.
Here's the reason why. They feel like the DOJ would target them and lie about them, set them up. They felt the IRS. Many of them were business
they're
people.
hiding over there. They won't be on camera.
Yep. They were afraid DOJ, IRS, and or their employer may fire them just because they're a conservative. Here's what scares me. We've seen it happen during the pandemic. If you were in the medical field like me and spoke out against the vaccine, we saw people being fired left and right. They try to take away board certifications from several physicians. So people started being quiet, right? We knew the dangers of that shot, but they weren't informing patients. And that makes them win. Can I tell you? I don't want anyone to lose their job. But if we aren't true to our professions and patients' rights and informed consent, why are we in healthcare? Well, that could be same for legal people and judges. We lost our way in this country, but people are genuinely, and I have a lot of empathy, are afraid to say that they're a conservative or they're a Trump supporter or even speak out against the Biden administration. Heck,
And that's extraordinarily dangerous. And
what does that remind you of?
I know what it reminds me.
Venezuela, Iran, China, Nazism.
Cuba, of
Yeah.
course, yeah. But they all love Cuba.
So
Everybody loved Castro.
I
You
am
know what's amazing? And this is the greatest illustration of it. It's the group that demonstrates in favor of Hamas and Palestinians
Yeah.
and particularly the gay and lesbian groups. And I'm not even talking about Hamas now. I'm talking about regular Palestinians. They would be lucky if they didn't get killed in Palestine. Remember, 80% of Palestine supports Hamas. Cut out the
they
nonsense.
voted them in.
Nikki Haley, who of course we're going to pick on tonight, in one of her other Democrat type statements, said that half the people of Palestine should be allowed to come in here as refugees. Well, that'd be great because we'd have a whole bunch of terrorists running around the country. Everybody in Palestine is taught from the earliest age to hate America. It begins with you hate Jews, want to destroy Israel, and then you destroy the really big Satan, and that's the U.S.
And
The best thing you can do is kill a Jew or kill an American.
where were some of those?
Everybody's taught that. Everybody is taught that. Recent polls, 80% of the Palestinians support what Hamas did in invading. They cheated the streets on September 11, which, Trump once said that, and they got him into all kinds of trouble. Gosh almighty, the FBI showed me the tapes.
So some of those hostages were put in Palestinian homes. One kid was branded, starved, hit by all the neighbors. These are not good citizens.
Yeah, and the problem, I think, has been, and this is an ancient issue that I've had going back to the Bush administration. We created a moral equivalency between the Palestinian Authority and Israel. And there is no such thing even close.
Right. You're right.
Palestinian Authority is a creation of a mass murderer and massive criminal named Arafat. Arafat killed hundreds of people, specifically 27 Americans, for which I indicted him and kept him out of the United States. When I was mayor and he tried to go to a UN concert that I sponsored, I threw him out.
You're famous
for
that.
But I did it for a purpose, to try to slap Bush and Clinton across the face and say, wake up.
You can't appease these people.
Stop treating him like he's really negotiating with you, you jackass. Because all he wants is an opportunity to make money, proven by the fact that when Clinton offered him everything he wanted, including a piece of Jerusalem, he turned him down.
Yeah, they don't.
Because if he didn't have the conflict, he wouldn't be getting the money. And Mrs. Arafat is sitting in the south of France now. She's worth $1 billion. And the people of Palestine who are brainwashed are starving.
Yeah.
We have given Palestine enough money so that everybody there
I
can.
was going to say a lot of that's taxpayer money. And by the way, we're still giving it. But Ted, do we have that video ready of Mayor? No.
Oh, yes.
Mayor Giuliani today was serving coffee down at the very famous Red Arrow Diner.
Just in case, you never know,
But he is a good barista.
Might
I have
to
to say.
do it in prison.
I think you'd have a great, you'd be great at this.
With Trump, it'd be like a.
Go ahead, just.
They could use you in your document.
I'm good.
What do you make of this?
You know what I would ask? What percentage of the people that are about to vote for Nikki will ever vote for president.
MyPillow.
MyPillow.
MyPillow, Mike Lindell, American-made products. He's an employer who hires Americans. They've tried to target him.
We love Mike. No, this is what we have to get used to. You know, you can call yourself a libertarian, you call yourself a conservative, call yourself a patriot, call yourself a Democrat, whatever. But all of us who believe in a constitutional government, that the law comes before all of these things. It has to be respected for everyone.
But we support Mike in his products, very good products. Really, if you think of MyPillow and you've never been to the website, they now have slippers, bathrobes. My favorite are the towels and sheets. I buy them all the time. And again, it's an American-made company, American employees. Code Rudy will get you up to 66% additional
Pillowcases and get red pillowcases and red sheets for Valentine's Day.
Oh, that's
As a
fun.
Valentine's Day.
It's coming up. It's coming up. Thank you for supporting Mike, and thank you for supporting Rudy. All the products that we talk about on the show during the commercials, use code Rudy for additional
And I
savings.
have it right up here. Go to MyPillow.com. Right there at the top, there's a place to put in the promo code RUDY. So be sure to put that promo code in there.
Look at 30.
Well, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to see who would like to get interviewed. And I promise it will be a fair and not one of those.
The prosecutor.
No, and I'm not one of those slimy reporters. I'm a fair
We'll be
person.
right back.
Towers Foundation.
Our device is something that you can plug into your television, and now you can use your television as a social television type experience. So in the Portal universe, you can watch your favorite content creators' videos, live streams, music. We also have TV subscriptions as well.
TV subscriptions.
So you can also
regular channels, all the sports.
Right, you can actually cut your cable from your cable subscription and get QUX TV on our QX TV boxes, and you can pay half the price that you're currently paying for your cable television subscription, and you can get all the best premium TV channels and more. I mean, it's really, there's so much on there, Rudy. I mean, you've seen it.
No, I've seen it and I use it, and it's good. I mean, it's just exactly the same except for half the price. Plus, nobody is finding out what I'm watching, and that's not being reported to anybody.
Right, so you have absolute privacy using this device, which you don't have on other devices out there currently on the market.
This is absolutely great. QUX.TV is how you can find out about it. QUX.TV.
Use promo code RUDY to receive $30 off.
This is Rudy Giuliani back again with America's Mayor Live, and I have with me Paul Ingrassia. I'm sure you've read some of the things that he's written. He's one of President Trump's favorites, I happen to know. He's a lawyer. He's a writer. He's an investigative reporter. He's an investigator.
Mm-hmm.
And today he was a political volunteer making phone calls.
Yes.
God bless you.
God bless you. It's an honor to be here.
So now tell us, Paul, you've spent a lot of time watching politics over the last 2 years.
Right.
Tell us how you see it and where you think we are now and how this is all going to progress.
Well, I think, the stakes could not be higher with this presidential election. I mean, this is it for our country. And I think Donald Trump, whenever he goes on stage and says, if we don't win, we're not going to have the country anymore. And you're personally experiencing that, at that level with the weaponization of the justice system. What we're seeing out of Georgia, the district attorney, with the news over the past week with how corrupt everything is. So, I think many Americans feel it. I think many Americans are waking up. They sense.
It's hard. You have to forgive them in a way.
Right.
It's hard to believe this stuff.
It is hard to believe. I mean,
5 years ago, 6 years, I don't know exactly what. If you told me this stuff, I'd tell you were crazy.
I know. It's incredible. I mean, we were having, one of the most successful economies under Trump just 3 years ago. Now we have historic inflation. We have crime, at levels that we have not seen in decades in our cities. Fortunately, New York and so many of these great cities are in decline because of our open border, and it's incredible, really, how fast it's happened, how fast this country has gone downhill.
And some of the things that they do are so irrational
Yes,
that it's impossible. You wonder yourself, what am I missing here? Am I being unfair? Or I mean, how can you have a country without a border?
I know, it's incredible.
Like people will say it's unfair to say that these people are criminals.
Right.
Well, it's unfair to say they're not
I know.
because we don't know what they are.
We don't.
They are vetted to the extent they are by the criminal cartels of Mexico.
Of course.
So we've got to assume, to protect ourselves, we're getting a disproportionate number of bad people.
Of course. Of course. I mean, name a single country in the history of the world without a border that did not enforce its borders. I mean, those countries probably didn't last too long. And yeah, it's incredible. There are criminals crossing the border. I mean, the fact that you have men performing in women's sports. I mean, this is something that Donald Trump always talking about. I mean, these are like foundational issues, and due process being the most important issue. And it seems like our political leadership, half of it doesn't believe in it.
Didn't a female or a male who says he's a female just win a golf thing?
Yes.
Well, that'll drive him. I'm going to call him later.
Yeah, you got it. Call on.
Forget the primary.
I know.
That'll drive him nuts.
I know.
If they ruin golf.
If they ruin golf, he's going to be angry.
So, Paul, what inspired you? And I know you're sitting right in front of him. So let's talk about Mayor Giuliani for 1 second, and then we'll get to President Trump. You had written such an incredible piece,
right?
Highlighting the mayor and his service. Can you tell us what inspired you? Like, what compelled you to do that? I mean, it's a two-part question.
Right. Well, I mean, so much. I mean, I'm Italian American. I grew up. He's a hero. He's a hero for Italian Americans across the country. This came out around Columbus Day with the left trying to tear down our statues. And of course, rename Columbus Circle. We can't have that happen. So that was one of the reasons. And of course, just highlighting the friendship between Mayor Giuliani and President Trump and loyalty, bringing out the virtue of loyalty, which is so uncommon in our politics. I thought, bringing that friendship to light manifested that virtue. And of course, I have so much respect for Mayor Giuliani, being a lifelong New Yorker.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. But it is, I mean, that's the whole thing is going after, they're doing it again now. They're going after statues.
Right. Between George Washington.
They're going after statues.
Teddy Roosevelt.
They also took out of City Hall my most treasured statue.
Right.
The one of Jefferson.
Yes, I know.
In the city council chamber, which could theoretically be an insane asylum.
I know.
If you listen to their deliberations, back then I thought it was an insane asylum. Now it's a special insane asylum.
Right.
They're completely out of their minds. They voted to allow non-citizens to vote, despite the fact that the New York Constitution lays out the qualifications for voters and it says you have to be a citizen.
I know.
So that doesn't matter. It says you have to be a citizen, but you can vote.
Both.
That they took the Jefferson statue down, and these ignorant, ill-educated morons do not realize Jefferson was very opposed to slavery. He just didn't know how to do it, but he did put in our seminal writings the poison pills. He knew that his writings would create contradictions that would lead to a conflagration like a civil war.
Exactly. And incredible that the left is attacking his legacy. This is not the left anymore. This is not just Democrats. These are, as you said earlier, Marxists. And this is totally out.
Yeah, I think that's the part.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe, it's hard for people to pick that up and believe that and accept that, because it seems like that's some kind of it's almost like a science fiction.
I know.
Or Orwell.
Never thought that this
well,
and
this is our chance.
On a positive note, like President Trump's momentum gets stronger and stronger by the day. I mean, the headquarters today in Manchester, so many supporters there. Don Jr. made an appearance.
Oh, good.
you know, the people were on the phones all day long, thousands of calls being made, and you know, very few people picked up the phone and said they're supporting Nikki Haley. Pretty much everyone
Wow.
that I spoke to,
Wow.
that many of the other volunteers spoke to, were all on the train. So,
Well,
Wow.
well, thank you. Thank you very much. And we're going to take a short break and you just keep going. You have you back very, very shortly. You really have.
Body is an amazing chemical laboratory. When you give it the right
Well, we're already on our commercial.
body is an amazing chemical laboratory. When you give it the right chemistry, it functions the best. Balance of Nature is the ultimate whole fruit and vegetable chemistry.
Get 35% off your first order by using discount code RUDY.
What dear?
Body is an amazing chemical laboratory. When you give it the right chemistry, it functions the best. Balance of Nature is the ultimate whole fruit and vegetable chemistry.
Get 35% off your first order by using discount code RUDY.
And we're back.
Welcome back. And this is a Balance of Nature time for Rudy Giuliani. You make sure you go to balanceofnature.com. You'll get here if you'd like to try some here. These are good for you. And what? If it's good for you. This gets you your necessary amount of vegetables and your necessary amount of fruits every day. And I got to tell you, it perks me up. It keeps me going. I love it.
So head over to balanceofnature.com and be sure to use that promo code Rudy, RUDY. Not only are you doing yourself a favor, you're doing your
Tell us who
body
you are.
and mind a favor.
I'm Bernie Underwood,
Mhm.
originally from Lowell, Massachusetts. Retired firefighter from Lowell.
God bless you for that.
Yeah, thank you. God bless you, man.
Exceptional people, firefighters. But go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess I would qualify as a former Democrat. Most of us union guys are Kennedy Democrat.
Me too.
Now we registered Republican, and an angry former Democrat at this point. And probably the most angry for what's been happening to you specifically, of course, President Trump, and a number of other people. I think there were 18 people indicted or 19. People
Yeah,
indicted.
you know, I'm supposed to be in a conspiracy with them.
Yes,
I only know 4 or 5 of them.
a RICO conspiracy, and the conspiracy and the crime, it seems to me, the crime and the conspiracy seems to me, and I've followed it pretty closely, is that you had the temerity to question an election. And I've seen numerous tapes in 2016 where there was a line of Democrats questioning the 16 election. So now it's a crime apparently, and I'm enraged by it. You know, I'm angered by it. In 2001, after 9/11, we were asked by the New York Fire Union to fill out funerals.
I remember.
Because they had guys on the pile and they had guys who had to work, and they sent out messages to the union guys to come down in dress uniform and be at the funerals, which was sometimes 6 to 8 a day, because they just didn't have the manpower and for the families to make a showing. And I happened to have gone to a funeral at St. Pat's Cathedral, and I wish I could remember the guy's name. He was a famous rescue captain. Was filmed rescuing somebody rappelling down a window, and you spoke.
Could it have been Terry Hatton?
No, I believe it was an Irish name, and I can't remember the guy's.
Terry was Irish too.
Yeah, and you did the eulogy, and I was there at the back of the church. And I also
I remember that. You know why I remember that? He had numerous girlfriends.
that would
He
be
had
probably the
numerous
guy. Yeah.
friends in the, and the family had to space them out in different places so they didn't fuck with each other.
Yeah.
He
So
was quite a handsome, very, very handsome guy.
I think that a Vietnam vet, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was like one of the, and Terry was also, Terry Hatton, the other one that I mentioned. They were like superstars.
Yeah. I mean, we saw a video of films of some of his rescues because just a procedure that he did.
You know, they taught me how to rappel.
Did they?
Yeah, so that I could play the Beast and Beauty and the Beast and come in on a. They taught me how to rappel. The guy who did it actually lived through September 11th. He was badly injured, but he lived through it.
Yeah.
They're great guys.
Yeah.
And thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a pleasure. It was the greatest job I ever had. I never felt like I went to work. But I mean, my point being is that, regardless of party, I don't think anybody can question that what you did was patriotic and honorable and did your job. I do remember taking my son to a ball game at Yankee Stadium prior to your mayorship, and seeing cars on the side of the Father Deegan Expressway on blocks, and the city was a mess. And then going down later on, the difference. And again, at this time, I'm a Union Democrat, but it didn't matter. I saw the results, and now you're under indictment. Now they're trying to bankrupt you, and I'm angry about it. It's in America, in this country.
And the FBI went and took my iCloud account,
Yes.
and they did it the day I began representing Donald Trump.
Without
They
you
did it
knowing
for
it.
3 years,
Right.
and they stopped the day I stopped representing him.
And
So Bernie, you're from still low, or are you from?
I'm living in New Hampshire now,
You live in a free state.
hey,
You live in a free state now.
and recently moved back from Florida.
wow.
Free
So
state.
that's another free state.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
yes.
Tuesday.
like in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Tell everybody's thinking about New Hampshire
It's
tonight.
it's extremely
It's getting a
cold.
little cold.
It's very, very cold. That would be
Yeah.
my impression of New Hampshire. It's a great state. I mean, I love Massachusetts. I was brought up and grew up there. We can't control the politics of a state. And we have not, my whole family's down there. It's, the people there are great.
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. Yeah.
Once in a while, you elect a Republican. Well, we've got one more guest.
Well, thank
Okay.
you, Bernie.
Thank you, Rick.
Bernie, thank you.
Sounds like you'll be voting on Tuesday. Sounds like you'll be voting on
In the
Tuesday.
morning. Yeah.
And since this is a Republican primary, he votes only once.
Yeah.
This is Juan, a veteran,
Juan, how are you?
former.
Full name?
Hey, how you doing, bro?
Sit down, Juan.
And speaking to the mic, yeah.
Juan Cespedes.
All right.
Former Democrat.
Oh,
Is that right?
yeah, they wanted me to say that. They
Oh,
wanted
we got
to-
two. We got two.
Yeah, 1975.
That's what you have in common.
Prior, 1975. Yeah, I read up on you.
Oh, wow.
It's good.
75?
Hey, this guy's good.
It's always good.
So where do you live here?
Yeah, I live in Manchester, New Hampshire.
And
Absolutely. Hey, go vote. We need change. We need change. We need to bring Daddy back. Put Daddy back in office. Daddy Trump, Papi. We need to put Daddy Trump back in office.
You know who I think thinks he's a daddy? The guy in Korea, Kim Jong-un. I swear to God.
Isn't he the only president that actually went to Korea?
You're saying
He
looks up to Trump.
That's the balls on that man.
By the way, you're still
balls
to
on that
Trump,
man.
right?
I
You're saying he looks up to Trump.
You went to Korea too?
I did. I went to North Korea. I went to the parallel.
I didn't read that in your bio. I didn't see it in there.
It's in my book. I went there, and they have at the parallel, they have these big, they're almost like shacks, but a little more nicer than that. Very, very rectangular. And here's the border. So when they negotiate, the North Koreans sit on this side and the South Koreans sit on this side. So now they're negotiating over prisoners or whatever the hell they're negotiating. So the North Koreans never go down on this. So they bring me in, and the major is taking me around to show it to me. So I walk over the line. The minute I walk over the line, I'm in North Korea. And I said, I bet a lot of people do it. A lot of people don't do it, but all right, that's okay. We just won't tell anybody. So stupid me, there's a door in the back. I open the door and I walk out. He comes, he grabs me. The guy grabbed me by the pulls me in and clocks the door. He said, did you see across there? I said, no, I had to get a chance. He grabbed me so fast. He said, look out the window. There are guys maybe a couple of football fields away with machine guns pointed right at you. And they've been there for 40 years. They've been pointing machine guns at each other. For 40 damn years, they're pointing machine guns at each other. I said, well, did they ever kill anybody? Yeah, every 3-4 years.
I think you've done everything, Mayor Giuliani. So we only have about one more minute, Juan. Can you quickly tell us why you left the Democrat Party?
Well, when I was serving, Donald Trump was in office, and honestly, that was like the best. I think, in my opinion, he brought peace to the Middle East.
He sure
You know, he brought peace to the Middle East, and I'm just trying to say, like, it doesn't matter what people say. Like Donald Trump, he's a human being.
Mhm.
We're allowed to be humans.
Yeah,
like
we're all flawed,
we're all saying
right?
things
Yeah.
that are kind of crazy sometimes or whatever. But when we do the right thing, like at the end of the day, Donald Trump, they're trying to get him over here, indictment over there, but he's not nothing.
Yeah.
He needs another lawyer. Hey, he can find me at 6:03 every Wednesday night.
I'll be your agent.
Hey, Jay, it was a pleasure.
We want to remind.
In New Hampshire, and I understand you do a great Donald Trump. Let's hear it.
Well, let's do it.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
This is perfect.
Give me a couple of lines.
A couple lines, just a couple lines. Thank you.
Are you going to win tomorrow?
Yes. That's huge. Big deal.
Well, thank you.
New Hampshire primary. I work on that.
With a New Hampshire voter on set with you, a former Democrat. So not all everyone that's aligned with the Democrat Party, they're not all voting for him.
I love Democrats.
No.
You just need to be helped. We got to help them. They need help.
Nah.
I have a suggestion too. I believe the name of the party should be changed. If you want to take down statues of Washington and Jefferson because of connections to slavery, my goodness, they didn't have a connection to slavery as a Democratic Party. There's no single institution in America that has a closer connection to slavery and segregation after that than the Democrat Party. So if you really KKK, yeah, and part of
Oh boy.
they were all Democrats. And so you got to get rid of the name of that party. I mean, if we have to call baseball teams and football teams names like their condoms, the Guardians and Manders and
Got troubles in mind.
I mean, then we got to change the name of the Democrat Party.
I love it.
So tomorrow,
vote for Trump.
Vote for
Get
Trump.
Daddy. Let's bring Daddy back, baby.
Yeah, he's got it.
Let's bring Daddy
I
back.
got to introduce this guy to Trump. Trump's going to love this guy.
He is.
So
I tell my mom.
vote.
My
We'll
dad.
be on. We're going to try to come on early tomorrow. So we're going to see if we can get you some inside early polls, because there are people around here who have a pretty good idea of how it's going just by looking at the lines and who's on the lines. And
Oh man.
so we'll see if we can get you a little bit of information on whether the polls are holding up or who's turning out.
And honest, Donald Trump has been winning since the whole Biden thing. He's been winning.
Yeah. Well, remember, I was going to tell you to vote. Just make sure you vote to save our country. God bless America. God.
I've always wanted it.
Our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason we're able to talk, we're able to analyze, we are able to apply our God-given common sense.